So like many of you watching, I'm having to study mostly at home at the moment, and studying at home brings with it so many advantages, but also some disadvantages, and it can be quite difficult sometimes to first of all bring yourself to study, and second of all to actually stay there and stay focused and keep studying. So in this video I'm going to address those two things, and hopefully, fingers crossed, you'll find them useful and they'll help you get the benefits of studying at home and fewer of the drawbacks. So there's all kinds of distractions when you're studying at home. There's things like TV, housemates, you study in the same place as you eat sometimes, or the same place that you sleep. Like, not many people have a designated study room at home. So there's so many distractions which can, as I said, either stop you from studying in the first place or distract you from studying once you've already sat down and started to commit to it. So the first thing we're going to talk about is how to actually get studying in the first place. So studying needs to be as easy as possible, because you will naturally do the easiest thing that is available to you in that moment. It's very rare for people to take the hard route. So you need studying to be as easy as it can be and as frictionless as possible, so that in the morning you're more likely to decide to get up and study rather than decide to get up and watch telly. So the best thing that I find to help with this is to change the environment. So study somewhere different from where you do everything else, like eat, sleep, socialise, whatever. So whether that be getting out to the library, say you're going to go to the library at 9 o'clock, or a different university sort of study area where you're less prone to being distracted by all the other things going on, and you're in a place that your brain associates with studying and being productive, rather than in somewhere that it associates with sleeping, eating, socialising, etc. If for whatever reason you can't do this, for example you've gone back home, or there aren't any study spaces available to you, at least try and find a space at home which you only use for studying. So a desk, for example, that you keep clear all the time and you only study at it, so you don't sort of do internet shopping at that desk or whatever, or like sit on Facebook for ages at that desk. You only study at that desk. So hopefully this will start to train your brain to associate that area with studying, so you know as soon as you sit down at that desk, that's study time, and you actually need to start studying or working, rather than sort of working on the sofa and then you don't actually end up starting, you just end up sitting there doing nothing. So as soon as you encounter a hurdle, even if it's before you've started studying, it can put you off studying altogether. This is something that I always used to fall into the trap of doing. So I'd say I'm going to go and do some revision or something at 9 o'clock in the morning, and then I'd sit there for 5 minutes at 9 o'clock with the intention of doing some work, and then spend like an hour trying to work out what I was actually going to do without actually starting. So you can see one of my previous videos for how I do this, but something that I find useful is to have a set of questions that are sort of labelled with how well you perform on them. So you know as soon as you sit down, you just need to tackle the ones which you perform the worst on, in my case that are labelled red. So then you sit down, you know what you can do, you just tackle the first red set of questions that you see. And this helps to remove all that time procrastinating and wondering what you're actually going to do when you sit down to study. The last tip in this section of how to actually get down and start studying is to commit to working with other people. For example, if I said to myself, I want to revise acute coronary syndromes at 8 o'clock this evening, I'm going to do it on my own, then it might get to 7:45 and I might think, I can push it back 15 minutes and go have some more food, or finish watching this TV programme or something. And then I can keep pushing it back and it might never get done, or I might only get 10 minutes done. But if I commit to studying with a friend at 8 o'clock, then if I don't turn up, I'm not only letting myself down, I'm letting them down as well. And you're obviously way too nice to let your friends down, so you'll turn up and you're much more likely to actually get some studying in there. And also doing it with friends, it's, especially at the moment, it's another social interaction, even if it's digitally, like online. it's still something sociable, and it's good for working through problems as well, so it'll be a lot more enjoyable than just doing it by yourself. So you'll look forward to it and you're more likely to want to do it anyway. And I'll be honest, a lot of the time I end up learning so much from my friends when I do these little study sessions, that even if we do a lot less than I would have done by myself, I know I'll get more out of it anyway because they know things that I don't. So the second part of this video is how to keep your focus. So the first tip is to do things in chunks. So if you sit down with the intention of doing 5 lectures worth of work in one go, you're less likely to finish that chunk and less likely to keep your focus for all of that time. So you're more susceptible to distractions from outside and less likely to finish it. So this might sort of put you on a bit of a downer and think, oh, I've started something, I've not finished it, and I just can't be bothered because I just can't, you can't keep your focus. So it's much better to break things up into smaller chunks, and then you can say, right, I've done this one, I've done this one, I've done this one, I've done this little small chunk, rather than doing one big one and then never actually reaching the end. So you'll get a sense of achievement each time you do that little chunk, and it'll be a lot more easier to keep track of what you've done and how long it's taking you if you do this rather than just doing it in one massive lump. There is a caveat to this though. If you're doing sort of short, sharp bursts of work, you need to make sure they're as effective as possible, and they're also engaging to try and prevent you from getting distracted by other things. So in order to do this, just answer questions. You'll get through a lot more content by answering questions compared to writing notes. It's a lot more engaging, so you're less likely to become distracted, and also a hell of a lot more effective as well. So you're more likely to actually take on board and remember what you're learning, what you're studying, compared to just writing stuff out. So in terms of the time you put in compared to what you get out, answering questions is definitely the best, most effective use of your time. So the last two things are a little bit less related to actual studying, but kind of other bits. So first thing is caffeine. So if you know that you're susceptible to having a slump, say in the afternoon, or sort of late morning, a lot of people have a bit of a slump late morning, have some caffeine before. Like if you drink coffee or whatever, just have some caffeine before, and you'll help try and mitigate that sort of tail off of concentration, which can lead to you becoming distracted. So you'll hopefully remain concentrating for longer, less likely to become drained, and more likely to complete the little chunks that you're doing. And the last point I've got for this section is to meal prep in advance, at least for lunches anyway. So for me, I really like cooking, and I'd much rather spend a couple hours cooking and eating and sort of savouring my lunchtime than I would spend more time studying. So for example, if I finish what I'm doing in the morning at 12, then if I haven't meal prepped anything in advance, I can quite easily spend like 2, maybe even 3 hours just downstairs in the kitchen, cooking, eating, washing up, and then sort of laying on the sofa in a food coma, not really doing anything. But if you have prepared your meals in advance, then it's a case of going downstairs, opening the fridge, popping it in the microwave, or like heating it up or something, and then it takes a lot less time. So you haven't got all the cooking time, you haven't got all the washing up time, so you'll lose your flow of concentration less, so you'll be able to quickly get back on it and start working again after lunch. And then hopefully you'll have done enough work by sort of afternoon, evening time that you'll be able to spend a while cooking and enjoying your evening, rather than thinking, oh crap, I've spent 3 hours eating my lunch and now I've got all this work to do in the evening that I really can't bother to do, and I haven't got any time to cook a good dinner, and I haven't got any time to socialise with my housemates. So yeah, definitely recommend meal prepping in advance. It will save you a lot of time and keep your concentration levels up there. So just a quick summary. So you need to make studying as easy and as frictionless as possible. So have a designated study space, know what you're going to study by having question banks, doing short, sharp bursts of studying, sort of in question banks again. Study with your friends, keep the caffeine flowing, and make sure you're meal prepping in advance to try and reduce the amount of time you're spending procrastinating over lunch. So if you have any other tips or tricks that you'd like to share about how you study at home effectively, then please leave them in the comments below. Thank you very much for watching, and I'll see you in the next video.